My boyfriend and I have been studying together at university, and while he is studying part-time, working part-time and engaging heavily in his amateur acting career, while I am studying full-time and working part-time, we share one subject at uni together. On top of this, he is trying to pick up another hobby while looking after his grandfather who is in his final stages, in a nursing home. As you can imagine, for the past 6 months he has very little time to cut out of his week to spend with me. None, in fact. I have been fine with this for the most part. I have been driving 45 minutes 3+// times a week to get to his house so we can steal a few hours together, but he doesn't have time to spare. This is an inconvenience I can live with. However, he has been asking me to do a lot of other things too. He has frustrated me multiple times with demands that I visit his grandfather, who does not recognize me, for 2 hours, which turns into 4.5 hours, or help him with a family matter, which lasts 5 hours or so. Every time this happens, he promises he will drive me home. And every time he says he doesn't have time anymore and I need to catch the train home, 1 hour plus walking. I have spoken to him about how this is unfairly affecting me, and he seems to take it on board, but just forgets again the next time he needs something. After forcing me to spend $600 plus on his best friend's destination wedding, the weekend before we both had 2 major exams due, he demands that we switch our exam times because he didn't spend enough time studying and he needed the extra day. I concede and he squanders his spare day sleeping because he needed it. I take my classes very seriously and I feel very over by his demands. I understand that family matters / best friends are important things, but he has eaten into hours and hours of my study time, and my grades are dropping. Not only that, but it's affecting my emotional health also. I have expressed to him that it is affecting me badly, but he tells me I'm being very unsympathetic and selfish. What's more is that I have about $10,000 in savings. He recently became aware of this and has demanded that I help him pay his bills because we're a team, he is broke. I helped him with a few, but drew the line after $500 because he is very irresponsible with money and there's only so much I can pour out before it seriously affects me. He is also demanding that I give him access to my bank account because we are in this together. And he wants to marry me one day, so we should start sharing now. I don't really know what to do. I want to be a good girlfriend and do what he needs me to do right now, but it's beginning to affect my health. I am a 28-year-old woman and have been married to my husband, a 32-year-old man, since 2018. My husband is ethnically Japanese and a second-generation American. His parents are from Osaka. He kind of sort of half speaks Japanese, mostly sentences he has memorized / greetings. And his parents speak great English. On the other hand, I lived in Japan for 3 years, so I am conversationally pretty good. I have studied hard to get to the level I'm at, and I have passed level 2 of the Japanese language proficiency test. Not great, but not bad. Lately, my husband is super into me calling him Goshijin-sama, which can be translated to my honored husband. It's extremely unusual to call your own husband this, as it is usually reserved for other people's husbands as a respectful term, but it's kind of an anime / Japanese geek culture thing. I was okay with it in private because it makes him happy. Last week went to his parents' house for dinner, and on the way over he asked if I could call him Goshijin-sama all evening. I immediately shot his idea down with a firm no, because that would be super embarrassing. His parents are native Japanese speakers in their 60s. I'm not going to subject them to what you'd pay a waitress in a maid cafe $20 for a cup of coffee to call you. To be honest, I don't think my husband really gets how the phrase is properly used, despite his insistence. He kept trying to convince me, reminding me that he is Japanese and knows what is proper. Despite the fact that I speak better Japanese than him, but I was having none of it. I just shut down and tuned him out. We got there, and sometime into the night I called his name to ask if he wanted a drink. Despite him being in hearing range, he ignored me. I said it again, and this time he looked at me, gave me this pleading shrug, and then turned back to the TV. I didn't get him a drink and just got myself one. A while later, I said his name again, and he audibly sighed. He told me that he wanted me to call him what I call him at home. To which I responded I would most certainly not be calling him what I call him at home. This was all in front of his parents, by the way. On the car drive home, I told him that I wasn't going to call him Gashijin-sama anymore because he can't draw the line between fun, playful couple stuff and his parents. He has sulked for the past week and I don't even know what to do. Normally I would not even consider the possibility that I was wrong here, but he's normally a very rational, reasonable, and respectful person. I feel like I'm being gaslighted and don't know what to do. My mother is disabled due to a neurological disease. She was diagnosed in her late 30s, and I remember that she was sick and needed help. I used to really look up to her as a super mom who could overcome any obstacle. That was until my father died. My father died over 10 years ago when I was still in high school. At that time my brother and I lived with my parents. I got a job when I was in high school after he left, cleaning the house, mowing the grass, buying food with money from work, paying bills when I could, the minimum wage is low, and cooking dinner for my mom and myself almost every night. My brother was rarely at home, except to sleep or because he needed money. Over the years, my brother has been in and out of prison dozens and dozens of times for everything from drunk driving to drug possession to stealing from our mother to assault. He is currently incarcerated. No one mentions him or expects anything of him, except my mother who, in violation of a court order for her own protection that she herself asked for, sends him money and speaks to him weekly as well as sends letters. Back to my father's death, a 7-month bout with illness. Almost 2 years after my father's death, I graduated from high school and went to college out of state. I sent money to my mom when I was in college, and I distinctly remember, for example, using my scholarship I got in December to buy Christmas presents for my mom and brother, because I knew they wouldn't have anything if I won't buy. No one reciprocated, but I did not expect this. To be honest, I didn't care either until it became the norm over the next decade. That very Christmas, I was barely 18 years old, and I was collecting pennies to buy a cheap refrigerator after I returned home for the winter holidays with gifts, only to realize that there was no food in the house. My brother, in a drug-fueled rage, tore down the Christmas tree I had bought and decorated and threatened to kill himself if I didn't give him the money because no one loved him and that would prove that I cared. It is important to note that even during this time, my mother continued to let my brother, who became a criminal, back to the house. I'll try to skip my college and graduate years, but suffice it to say that I met my current husband and spent less and less time at home. When I was at home or when my husband and I were visiting, it was like this: clean my mom's house, buy mom food, cook for mom, take care of my mom. I was and remain very firm with my mother that I would not let my brother in my life as he threatened to kill me over the prescription cough syrup, threw me down the stairs and broke down the door to get to me, and some of the money I had at the time. I have no doubt that he will try to harm my child, my husband or me in order to get what he wants. He told me he would find me and he would teach me a lesson for his perception that I wronged him for not giving him money. And I have zero contact with him. I have blocked all numbers that have anything to do with him, including friends he calls from outside the prison. P.S. My mother let him take my number from her phone. I told my mom for years that I didn't want to have my brother in my life until he stopped using drugs for at least 1 year. To date, he is unable to do so. He stole tens of thousands of dollars from her. She always says she won't let him back into her house, but she eventually forgives him and the cycle repeats. The next year, when he was released again, she told me in no uncertain terms that he would not live with her, but admits that she keeps in touch, sends him money, and thinks it is the devil in him that makes him addicted. He will return. I offered to help my mom move closer to me since I live in many states. My husband and I even asked the realtor to come out and start the process of registering our house so we could find a house with space for my mom. My only stipulation was that she not drag my brother into my son's life. She categorically refused. She also refused to go to nursing homes, despite the fact that I went to her of my own free will and received excellent recommendations from her doctors. Now that she had surgery this week, my family is out of the slums. To be honest, I'm outraged by this. I had people who couldn't even send me a mutual Christmas card and told me that I was neglecting my mother, refusing to take time off from work and go to her place to take care of her. They don't care that I don't have days off and that I will most likely lose my job. One even stated that I wouldn't put groceries on my desk. I wouldn't work for such an employer. It's easy to say those words, but say it to my hungry baby. They said, "Who do you think took care of you as a baby?" And frankly, it hurts me. Sometimes you have to learn how to deal with life. You can't just ignore it, because getting on with life means losing your job. Walking away from my toddler in his growing up years and taking care of my mother, I guess? You can probably tell at this point that I'm fed up. I am in a stalemate when literally the only surviving family members tell me to quit my job, my family, my young child, to take care of my mom and help her. They also refuse to give a timeline, saying it will be as long as she needs it. I am expected to take care of her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no questions asked. I also feel strongly that they resent my mother for asking them to do me a service. Even though I have explained many times that I offered her to stay with us and have the operation here, at no cost to her, mind you. And she refused. In response, they tell me that she has the right to be close to her friends. I also tried to explain that by bowing to her at every call. They give her an opportunity, but they don't want to hear it. They don't seem to hear me when I try to explain that. For example, helping her get out of the physical therapy room a week and a half before her doctor's recommendation gives her an opportunity, and ultimately hurts her independence. She is used to everyone doing everything for her. For example, during the last visit she was very upset that I did not take her to Walmart, because she had to go there almost before the baby went to bed. It was not emergency. She wanted to look around. My mother, in all this confusion, has taken the position that although she doesn't want me to lose my job, a good daughter should take care of her mother. Frankly, I am very hostile to this statement, because my mother did not call me on my birthday before my father died. I tried to build some kind of relationship with my son. I always try to chat with them or talk on the phone. And in the last 12 years I can count on the fingers of one hand how many times she called me just to tell me about me, or my son, or ask how we are doing. If she does call, there is always an ulterior motive, money for my brother or for her because she gave my brother everything. I'm on the edge. I can't work full-time, take care of my family, and expect to hear several times a week how bad a person I am for refusing to give up everything I've worked so hard to take care of mine, mother. No matter what, I love my mom. My husband and his family saw it unfold and several people remarked, "Why are you even trying?" Meaning trying to schedule calls so she can talk / see my son. I invited her to my house earlier this month, scheduled plane tickets, airport assistance, etc. Just to watch her play on her phone or spend time playing with the dog instead of reading a book to my little one who just wanted her attention. Today, as if the last straw was needed, I called to check on her and she stated that she was going home against the doctor's orders because her dog needed her, because the dog was sick. First, he has a very minor skin condition that is almost 100% cured thanks to her friend giving him a prescribed ointment. Secondly, my little one got sick this week, meaning he didn't go to kindergarten for 3 days. And even after I told her about it, she never called to find out how he was. Just like she never called to check on him when he came down with the flu last year, or when he had a mysterious week and a half illness earlier this year that resulted in 4 doctor visits and a temperature of 104 degrees. I can't take it anymore. I am literally writing this as a last resort. My husband tells me not to talk to anyone. That's the whole family I have left except for one paternal aunt, because he sees me cry when hurtful comments and guilt come into play. He sees me trying to hide it from my child. But then I feel like I'm giving them what they want, right? Look at little Miss Potato, such a bad person and so inept at dealing with life. She just chose to ignore us all. But I can't defend myself all day in front of extended family members whom I've seen for over 10 years. And in some cases over 2 decades. Nothing I say will ever be good enough. I was told in no uncertain terms that I was a terrible person because I refused to leave my husband and young child and move across the county to take care of my mother. Postscript, I am not subject to the FMLA. My employer is not large enough and there is no comparable law in my state. I have 1 day of vacation left due to my son getting sick earlier this year. My husband gets almost 3 times as many days off, so took many more days to take care of him. In general, I do not want to lose my job or look for another one. It's a good job, it's just limited to a small company. She refused to move in with me. Either my husband and I are building a mother-in-law, or we are moving to a bigger house. Any aid agency or nursing home. She hesitates about allowing housework, but contradicts herself on the matter, telling me that Susie can help her if she needs anything, or that she has friends she can call, or, more often than not, she does well and can take care of herself. She wants help, but only when she wants it and only on her own terms. She told me that she would not end her relationship with my brother. I managed to get her to agree to a consultation after my brother attacked her, stole her car and pawned all her appliances. She moved to a domestic violence shelter but declined to press charges. This happened when I was 7 months pregnant, and when I refused to drive 20+ hours in a car. I was told essentially the same thing that I am being accused of now. She justifies my brother's behavior. He hooked up with the devil, and he can't leave him. I've talked to the Adult Protective Services counselors, and it all comes down to the fact that she's an adult. She can make her own decisions. Her doctors, although they seem to agree that she may need help taking care of herself, refuse to state that she is unable to take care of herself. I am 20 female, have recently moved out of my mother's house for college. I enrolled in scholarship. The other night, my mother wanted her, my younger brother, and I to have dinner together. It's been a while since we've spoken, and I'm afraid this might happen again. We were having a nice night, the dinner was delicious, and honestly, we were all having a good time. Eventually, we got onto the topic of how things were when I was younger. I made the comment on how her behavior when I was younger made me feel like I missed out on a lot of things as a child. She disagrees, and tells me that I'm being dramatic, and that my childhood was perfect. Quote, I was lucky to have a mom who cared as much as she did. My mother gave birth to me when she was 18. My father walked out when I was young, due to a personal conflict between the two. So, she raised me on her own until I was 7. She met a guy, and they ended up having a kid together, my younger brother. He was a golden child to my mom. His father was only a temporary item, as he left as well, soon after. Although the father of my brother was still visible in his life, I didn't have anyone to look up to as a father figure. Eventually, my mom went through a phase of depression after they separated. She started to care less and less about her children, and more about her parties and men she wanted to sleep with. It ended up getting so bad that by the time I was 10, I was a full-time caretaker of my younger brother. With the exceptions of the weekends he was with his father. I started to cook, clean, do everyone's laundry, and take care of everything outside of the boundaries of my home. From ages 13 to 15 I began missing out and losing good friends because I wasn't able to participate in any activity related to anyone else. I didn't get a car or a phone until I was 18, and even then I wasn't allowed to leave my house. I graduated senior year with flying colors and ended up getting a scholarship to a really good college. I took this opportunity not only to focus on myself, but to also help my mother realize that I was not going to be around forever. When she found out I got the scholarship, she threw a fit and told me I wasn't allowed to leave my responsibilities here at home. I left a week after the conversation. I did make sure that my younger brother was safe with his second guardian at the time. My mother and I talked on some occasions but never really kept contact. We got together, and you know the story. She told me I am an asshole for saying that she never really took care of me or my younger brother. I told her that eventually, she will need to get help and stop victimizing herself. But I'm starting to feel guilty, and that maybe I was dramatic after all. I've officially decided that I no longer need my mother in my life at this point in time. I'm now going to only focus on myself, and working towards a successful career in law. Of course, my mom won't take it well, but it won't really matter to her in the long run. Her children never really mattered to her. I'm going to stay in contact with my younger brother, though. I'm going to make sure that he doesn't possibly go through the same amount of trauma I did.